You don't need me to tell you that there are lots of horrible things going on in the world right now, and you don't need me to tell you that lots of these horrible things are impacting people's lives, and you don't need me to tell you that lots of these things are impacting people's jobs as well. Some of us, we find that our jobs are changing. Some of us, we find that we don't have a job at all. But when it came to WWE, there were two horrible options available to them with how they wanted to handle this in regards to their talent. Option number one was just continuing to have their performers work in close proximity to each other, thus increasing their exposure to a literally deadly virus. And option number two was just to go through the roster and sack everybody they deemed to be either on the fringes or just not that important. And what did WWE do? They whipped out the old double-ended dildo of destiny and did both of these things. Yeah, after over a month now of empty arena shows and the first positive test that is just what happens when you don't stay the at home, WWE yesterday released over 30 of their employees, and by all accounts, that number is going to rise and rise and rise and rise. And that's the first thing we need to address about all of this before we can do anything. The fact that these shows have been going on full stop. Like, I know the performers are getting a little bit of the blame for this because WWE did say, to their credit, that anybody who doesn't feel comfortable being on these shows doesn't have to be on them. But as anybody who has ever had any kind of a job will tell you, the stress and anxiety that puts on you of, well, you don't have to come into work, but guess it's up to you. That is a horrible position to be in. And so they did continue to work, and so did these shows continue to go on, and sports entertainment continued to sports entertain. But I've just got here the definition of sports entertainment that Vince McMahon once gave a New Jersey Senate, and it says, it's an activity in which participants struggle hand in hand primarily for the purposes of providing entertainment. What is the one thing we are all globally being told to do to try and mitigate some of all this? What is just, can you think of anything that sounds like it's less essential right now than that? And with them presumably unable to just conform to the rules of a world that they hadn't just made up for themselves, they got to work, didn't they? They rolled up their sleeves, they pulled out every single trick in the book to make sure they were allowed to perform shows, and then, just a couple of hours after Donald Trump's campaign fund was furnished to the tune of $18.5 million, by a complete coincidence, I'm sure, WWE was classified as an essential service, and Vince put on this mad business board of sorting out the country. Now, I'm just going to stick my neck out here and say I don't think it's possible for a company the size of WWE to have handled this anymore, I'll be diplomatic here, single-mindedly than they have. Like, all the advice we were being given, go into lockdown, work from home, social distancing, non-essential services, etc., 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 they ignored all of that until yesterday, because we've all been told, haven't we? Make sure you wash your hands. Fingers, thumbs, nooks and crannies, wrists, all of it. Make sure you are washing your hands. And what did they do yesterday? They washed their hands of so many men and women who, just a couple of months ago, were told, we can't bear to part with you. And that is the thing. A lot of people who got released yesterday, they have previously asked for their own releases. But WWE told them, we can't let you go. You can't leave right now. This is a big company. We need as much talent as possible. You're too important to us. Damn it. Here, sign a new long-term contract. And then, all of a sudden, that changed. Almost as if a slew of companies who would have been waiting in the wings to financially compensate them and sign them up for themselves were unable to. Almost like that, anyway. Now, look, don't get me wrong, I don't mean to be facetious about this. The loss of any job is heartbreaking and terrifying, especially now, and this is not the only company in the world that is doing this, but honestly, man, the nature of some of these cuts. Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows very recently signed very lucrative new long-term contracts because they did not want them under any circumstances to jump ship to AEW or to go back to New Japan or even work for Ring of Honor or any of the independents. No, you're too important. No, you can't, guys. You guys can't go. I know you want to go, but you can't go. You're too important. Here, look, here is a load more money. And now that all those companies aren't able to take them, gone. Can you, by the way, find for me a single analogy for that, which is not just simply some horrid little 5-year-old stealing the toys out from his younger brother's hands and then, as soon as he gets them, just deciding doesn't want them anymore. And it is no coincidence, by the way, that Gallows and Anderson were two of the very first names to go. Like, it is honestly as if somebody just opened up the spreadsheet of WWE wages, sorted it high to low, went down that list, saw Gallows and Anderson, wondered why the hell they were paying them that much, then remembered, laughed and sacked them. And you'd think as well, politically that would be a bit of a problematic move because they are two very good friends of AJ Styles, and WWE are going to be relying very heavily on AJ Styles going forward. But guess who else just signed a lucrative long-term contract that he is entirely unable to get out of? And of course, being an independent contractor with exclusivity agreements, WWE could just bin him off tomorrow if they wanted to, but if he wanted to leave, he's got to see the whole thing out. Do you get how this works? Then, of course, there was Leah Rush, who, despite being one of the best things on NXT in the last couple of months, is still regarded by WWE as somebody who used to kick up a bit of a fuss or whose heart wasn't really in it, despite him publicly going on record and saying that a lot of his problems stemmed from mental health issues. Oh well, guess that's a you problem now, buddy. And then, of course, there was Maria Kanellis, who, come on, guys, she's just had another baby. Not like WWE can really do anything with her at the minute, so whoosh, see you later, sweetheart. Oh, and of course Rusev, who like loads of people seem to think is a big star, but of course we at WWE, we've never positioned him as a star, so he can't actually be any good. Oh yeah, I do remember, what was that didn't he give production staff like $25,000 out of his own money to help them get through all this? What a gentleman you are, sir, going out on your back. See you later. It's just honestly really bizarre to me, all of this. Like, look at Gallows and Anderson, just to circle back around there. They were so important to the company a couple of months ago. We couldn't possibly let you leave. Here is loads of money, and as soon as push comes to shove, nah, actually we'd rather have the money, thanks very much. I did try to make some of these points on Twitter last night, but people genuinely started jumping in trying to defend WWE for it. Like, it's just business, Alan. They've got to be ruthless about this kind of thing. If they don't protect the bottom line, if they don't protect the company or the shareholders, then what is there going to be for the employees to work for in the first place? It's not their fault all this is going on, etc., etc. And do you know what? You're right, a lot of businesses are having to make really tough choices right now. It's a really difficult time for pretty much every single business out there, but not, and I cannot stress this enough, not WWE. They literally put out a press release a month ago, which they doubled down on hours before all of this happened, saying that they have cash reserves, accessible money to the tune of $500 million. Now, the most conservative estimates for the money they're going to save here is $4 million, and the most exorbitant estimates are around $8 million. So, to put that another way, this cost-cutting measure doesn't even dip in to 2% of that. Clearing out the roster is an absolute last resort, which they were not forced into at all. Now look, don't get me wrong here, I'm not trying to play down the severity of what is going on in the world right now, and if it goes on for months and months and months longer, then yes, even a company in WWE's position is going to be forced to do really, really ruthless things. And this is really, really ruthless, but just, we are so far from their hand being forced in this matter. It's just, it's so gross. And honestly, if you are so determined to believe that WWE are not the bad guys in this, that they had no say in the matter whatsoever, just honestly, you really think the fact that when there was loads of new moneyed promotions out there that could sweep up talent, they wouldn't let anybody go, and now that all these places cannot afford to pick anybody up, they are letting people go. You see no connection in those two facts at all, do you? And if all that's somehow still not enough for you, then let me just finish on this one point, all right? Yes, WWE live attendances are down to a big fat 0, and the money they make from those live shows is down to a big fat 0 in terms of like the gate and the merchandise and things like that. But do you even realize what a tiny fraction of WWE's television revenue comes from the attendances of those live shows? They have worked tirelessly for a decade to not be reliant on these shows as their major source of income. All their money, the bulk of it, comes from these TV deals, and as a result, they are still on course, in spite of everything that's happening, in spite of this grossly inflated wage budget that they just had to clear a bit off yesterday. In spite of all of that, they're still on course to record their most financially profitable year in their entire history. And they've done all of that with the blood, the sweat, the tears, and the broken backs of the very men and women whose livelihoods they refused to protect yesterday. And that is what the problem is. So, there you go. This all just absolutely stinks. in my opinion. And I just want to say to anybody watching who is a former WWE employee right now, in-ring performer, backstage production, anything, our hearts absolutely go out to you at this incredibly difficult time. Like, it just, not a single one of you deserves this. But anyway, let me know what you made of it all in the comments below. Of course, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. But in the meantime, thank you so much for watching. I've been Adam Cleary, and we'll see you soon. Goodbye.